it going? It's me, Betty Jean. In today's video, we are continuing on with the series that I kind of put on pause during Vlogmas and the Declutter series and all of that good stuff. This is the Would I Buy It If It Launched Right Now series. I initially got this idea from Dolly Mama Beauty. I will have her channel down below. Please go check her out. Basically, I just take 10 palettes in my collection and I chat about if it launched right now, would I buy it? And again, this is not necessarily to be like, do I like it? Do I hate it? Sometimes it's just a matter of like, my makeup preferences in this moment would not allow me to buy it right now. Or maybe I just have similar things and just knowing what I know now kind of thing. If I say no, it doesn't mean I dislike it. This is very soon after my eyeshadow palette declutter series. So everything I'm gonna talk about today, I do love. It survived the declutter. It's just kind of a way to self-reflect a little bit, maybe kind of really dive deep in my makeup preferences right now, and just kind of think about would I buy it in this moment if it were launching right now. If any of these were limited edition or discontinued, I'm taking that out of the reasoning. All of these are just launching for the first time right now. This isn't about like, if I lost it, would I buy it again? These are brand new to the market in this fantasy world, and I'm deciding as a consumer how I would feel. I'm also taking out the idea of PR in this. I have received PR from pretty much all of the brands I'm gonna talk about today, but I'm just pretending anything that I already own from the brand I got myself, and I'm buying these myself potentially for the first time. Before we hop into this video, I did of course film this look. It should already be up on my Instagram and TikTok by the time this video goes up, which is really funny because I think every single thing I'm gonna talk about is hella colorful, and I went quite neutral today, which is not the norm for me, but I was just kind of in the mood for it today. And my accessory details, these earrings and this necklace, I believe are both from Shop Sun & Co. I need to twist that around. And this ponytail is, I think, the Alley ponytail from insert name here. So yeah, without further ado, let's just hop in and chat about these 10 palettes and if I would buy them if they were launching right now. Let me just grab my little pile here. As usual, I recruited my husband Zane to help me grab these just to make it as random as possible. Although I have very few left for this series. I think this series is gonna come to a close soon and I'll have to like re-pick it up like in a year or something like that when I've had something sitting around in my collection for a while, but we have 10 more today to talk about, so let's just get into it. These aren't in any particular order. I just have them like smallest to biggest so they can fit on a stack. First up is the Shroud Cosmetics Creepy Cute 2. This is such a dream. This came out early last year and I love it. It's the sequel to the original Creepy Cute palette, which I love with my entire being. It remains my favorite pastel palette of all time. And if this were launching now instead of last year, I would still be just as excited. I was so stoked for this to launch. The Creepy Cute palette was a early purchase in my makeup shopping days, especially with indie makeup. I loved that palette to pieces, still do. And I would be just as pumped if this were launching now as opposed to a year ago. I would absolutely buy it. It is so cute. I love the formula. Obviously, I love Shroud, and this would just make me super happy. So the answer is yes, I would be buying this if it launched right now. Next up, number 2 is the Sugar High palette from Menagerie. It looks like this. It is so super sweet, so cute. I think this is the first palette they did as well with circle pans, which I really appreciate. By the way, I've done videos with all of these palettes, usually on my channel and or Instagram and TikTok, sometimes both. So yeah, you can go check those out if you need some inspo. So when this first got revealed, I ended up talking myself out of it just because, I don't know, I didn't feel like I needed it in my life, but then they did end up sending it to me in PR, and I'm so glad they did because I absolutely love it. I think it's so beautiful. These shimmers are spectacular. My only gripe with this is I wish there was a really dark matte shade, like a really deep blue or a deep purple. I feel like that would have completed this palette more for me. So if I'm being realistic with myself, if this were launching right now, I'd probably feel kind of the same way I did when it first launched. I feel like Menagerie palettes do that to me a lot. Like I don't always get super excited lately over like my first impression of the palette, but then when I actually use it, I end up loving it. But I have a feeling had I not known that I was gonna love it as much as I do, I probably would have talked myself out of it. I don't know if I would have felt like I needed it, and especially not having that dark matte in there, it wouldn't have made me as excited. So as much as I love this palette, I have a feeling I would have been able to talk myself out of it, and yeah, that's my answer. Next up, number 2 is the Fantasy Cosmetica Druid palette. I love this. I love this with my whole heart. I ranked this number 1 in my 2022 palette ranking video. This is such a stellar palette. This is the first palette the brand released, and they just knocked it out of the park. They did such a good job. These mattes are so rich and grungy and deep, and these shimmers are so shifty and amazing looking on the lids. I absolutely love it. And since then, they've released both the Sorcerer and the Bard, so I'm pretending those palettes released first, and now this one is coming out. And I think I would be all over it because I would have already fallen in love with their formulas. I'd be super excited to see what was next, and then they'd come out with this perfect color story. I love a swampy, grungy color story, so I would be all over this if this launched now, and I was thinking about buying it. That would be an easy no-brainer. Next up, number 4 is the Flower Punk from Kaleidos. This one stole my breath away when it launched about a year or 2 ago. I think this was actually closer to 2 years ago at this point. I think this is such a fun color story. It is my favorite palette Kaleidos has done. I'm hoping so bad they do more like regular palettes this year because last year they only did quads, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more palettes from them. But had this not launched before and it's launching right now, I would be all over this. I love Kaleidos as a brand. I love their formulas, and this is still my favorite color story they've done. I think it's so fun and unique, and the shimmers are so special, and I would be all over this if this were launching right now. That is an easy, easy, easy no-brainer. Next up, number 5 is my Lethal Cosmetics 1-Up palette. This one launched early last year. And it's super fun, very like video game themed. We have lots of super bright colors with amazing, delicious shimmers in it. So with this palette, as much as I love it, I have loved the looks I've created. It is so bright and fluorescent, and the shimmers are mouth-watering. I love Lethal's formula so incredibly much, one of my favorite brands. I just have a feeling, just compared to some of my other Lethal palettes, if this one were launching and I was really trying to decide what I wanted to buy right now and what I didn't, I have a feeling I'd be able to talk myself out of this one just because I have such a vast collection of colorful makeup. And I do kind of prefer the more unique color stories that Lethal has to offer. This one is more so just like a brights palette, which again, I do love colorful makeup normally. If you're here for the first time, this is not my norm. But I just feel like I'd be able to talk myself out of this one just because I know myself, I can't buy everything. I don't want to buy everything. And I feel like if this one were coming out, I'd rather just save my money for something else, even something else from Lethal, for instance. So as much as I absolutely adore this palette, I think it is such a blast. I think I would admire this one from afar, had I not known what I know now. Next up, number 6 is the Alice in Wonderland palette from Sigma. I got this last year. I think it came out last year as well, but it might have been a little bit older. I'm not quite sure. I've gotten sent some older things from Sigma, which I really appreciate. It looks like this. This was the first eyeshadow palette I tried from Sigma, my first time trying their eyeshadows ever, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised. I wasn't really expecting mind-blowing eyeshadows, but these mattes are super pigmented and they blend really well, and the shimmers just look so glossy on the lids. They're very smooth and metallic and really, really pretty. I was very impressed, and I'm glad I've gotten the opportunity to try them. Since then, they've sent me the Cinderella palette, which I love even more. I love that cool toned, magical, like grungy, colorful kind of vibe. That one is just such an enchanting color story. So in this case, I'm pretending that I already had that one, and this one is coming out now. I would be tempted by the Disney theme. I do love Disney. I do love Alice in Wonderland. But again, as much as I'm enjoying this formula, and I know now how much I like this palette, but had I not known how much I like this palette, I have a feeling this is another one where it's beautiful, but I'd probably admire it from afar. I don't know if this would be like a need. It's not filling a ton of holes in my collection as much as I do appreciate having it. Again, don't get me wrong. This clearly survived the declutter, so I love it, but I just have a feeling if I were deciding, making makeup purchases, I don't get PR in this fantasy world, I think I would let this one slide and just admire it from afar. But again, it is quite beautiful. Really happy I have it. Next up, number 7. We're already on number 7, my goodness. This is the Unearthly Cosmetics in the Dark palette. This one is so super pretty. Love these grungy colors with the pops of like whimsical shimmer. This is such a cute palette, definitely one of my favorites from the brand. Let's see. So I've only ever received PR from Unearthly. I haven't purchased anything myself yet. Very thankful for that. So in this case, I'm pretending that all of the palettes that I own, I bought myself, I've already owned them, and now this one is coming out. They come out with a lot of palettes, but there is something special about this one. This isn't quite the same as anything else in my collection. I love these grungy tones. I'm such a sucker for it, and these shimmers are really pretty. I have a feeling I'd talk myself into this one. It's super cute. I love an 8-pan palette. 8 to 12 pans is like my sweet spot, so I think I'd be all over this. I'd probably mull it over a little bit just because I do have a lot from Unearthly, but I think I would ultimately end up talking myself into this. It is quite beautiful. Next up, number 8 is my Beauty Bay Midnight palette. This one is so pretty. My goodness, it is gorgeous. I started buying Beauty Bay palettes back in 2021. I bought the Wilderness and Age of Opulence palettes and I fell in love with them. The shimmers were gorgeous and the mattes were amazing. And then they came out with these like berries, midnight and earthy palettes in early 2022. And they came out with multiple sizes. Like this one had a 9-pan, this like 16-pan size, and then a giant palette. And I was able to talk myself out of them at the time just because I don't really buy a whole lot of monochromatic palettes anymore. It's just not quite my vibe, as beautiful as they are. And I love these colors. Like I love blue and purple. It's just not the first thing I buy anymore. I'd rather have a more unique curated color story. So I did end up passing on these. And then they ended up sending me this one and the earthy palette in this size later on, which I'm very grateful for because again, it survived the declutter. I love this. I think the formula is amazing. The mattes are so rich. Again, I love blue and purple. The shimmers are so good, but I do have a feeling if this hadn't launched last year and it was launching right now, it would be a very similar situation where I would think it's mouth-wateringly beautiful, but do I need a lot more blues and purples? Probably not. I actually ended up talking myself out of it because of the Age of Opulence, which of course I kept both in the declutter, so obviously I felt the need to have both, but I have a feeling I'd be able to talk myself out of this one, admire it from afar. As much as I love it, I wouldn't know at the time how much I loved it, so being a monochromatic blue-purple palette, I would just let this one slide, enjoy the purples and blues within my collection already. Next up, number 9 is the Nomad Cosmetics Monteverde Cloud Forest palette. This one is so pretty. I love Nomad Cosmetics and this color story is so incredibly fun. I love these lush, jungly tones. We have a mixture of grunginess and brightness. The shimmers in here are spectacular. Now, Nomad is another brand where the first palette I ever got was the Tokyo, and I got it as a gift from a friend. And then since then, they started sending me PR, which I'm so grateful for. So in this case, I'm pretending that I already owned everything. I already bought everything that I have. I've tried everything out. I love the brand, and now this one is coming out. I think I'd be all over this. It's just such a good color story. I'm a sucker for greens. I love the pops of neon in here. And seeing swatches of the shimmers, I think I would lose my marbles. There are some really pretty duochromes in here. I don't think I would think about this one too hard. I think this one would be mine. I would own it very fast. It's just such a cool color story and I would want to have this one in my life. And last but not least, number 10, it's gonna be my Glamlight Michaela Pot 2. The insides look like this. So I fell in love with the first Michaela palette back in 2021 is when it launched, and then this one came out last year. And I bought it just because I knew how much I loved the first one. That was the first and only Glamlight palette I'd tried at the time. The mattes were so rich, so pigmented, so beautiful, and the shimmers were outstanding, so sparkly and metallic and wet looking on the lids. And I was really excited to see this one too. I still think the layout's kind of weird. Like, I don't know why they, like this shimmer should have been here to fall in the line of shimmers because it's like 2 green mattes, 2 purple mattes, and then it's not like that. I don't know why they arranged it that way, but regardless, I still think it's a really fun color story. Greens, purples, blues, all of these lovely shimmers, but I have my logic with this one. I'm pretending I've tried all the things that I've tried from Glamlight and now this one is new. Well, in this scenario, I would have tried the Glamlight Scooby-Doo palettes that came out in October. I think I got them in November though, because they took a couple weeks to ship out. And those ones didn't impress me as much. The shimmers were still beautiful, but the mattes were not quite the same as the Michaela palettes for me. They were much more sheer. They built up okay. They didn't get patchy, but it wasn't that same level of pigmentation from the first one. And I mean, even now, since trying those Scooby-Doo ones, I'm a little hesitant trying Glamlight in the future, especially because not every palette appeals to me anyway. Not to say I'm writing them off or anything, don't get it twisted, but I do think a little more heavily like, what's the norm? I've heard from most of you that this formula from the Michaela palettes is more the norm than the Scooby-Doo ones, but I would be hesitant if this one came out having just tried the Scooby-Doo ones that I did end up giving to a friend. Oh, I don't know. It's like I would want to because I really liked that first Michaela palette. And again, love blues, greens, purples. It's totally up my alley. I have a feeling I would waver on this one a bit, but I do think I would ultimately try it just because of how good the first one was. And I do love the colors in here, but I would be thinking about it. I don't know if I'd buy it immediately. I'd probably think about it for a hot minute. but I probably would end up getting this one. So the pile of yes, I would buy it if it launched right now ended up being 6 of the 10, and these 4 ended up being admire from afar. And again, I love all 4 of these. Literally nothing bad to say about them. Like, I think they're fantastic. Again, they survived the declutter. I know I'm a broken record, but I don't want you to get it twisted. I don't dislike those palettes at all, but just trying to put myself in the situation where I'm a major makeup consumer. I'm buying lots of makeup and there's lots of things releasing all the time. And these 10 things are coming out. Which ones do I want to buy? And honestly, I'm pretending these didn't come out on the same day, because if that were the case, I'd probably only buy one of these. And I don't even want to think about that parallel universe. This is just in general, they're coming out at whatever point in time. So yeah, that's kind of where I've landed. I would love to hear your thoughts on these palettes. Do you have these? Do you want these? I'd like to extend the same scenario to you. If you have any of these, would you buy it if it launched right now? I would love to chat down below. If you made it to the end of this video, why don't you leave, why don't you leave your favorite animal emoji? We haven't done that in a while. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps my channel out a lot. And if you're not already, you can follow me on my other socials. You can join the battybean fam. I am battybean on everything, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And if you want, you can subscribe. If you want to see more of my videos, I'm posting most days here as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, bye. It's always so hard to come up with my rationale with these. Like, I take this so seriously, and I'm really trying to put myself in this parallel universe. It's like so dramatic, and it doesn't need to be.